And we are live once again, a podcast about movies. I am your host, Jacob Barber, joined as always by Austin Pez Howell. Austin, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good. I just woke up from a nap as of this recording, so I was very, very sleepy. I needed to go to bed for a couple hours before we went live. But yes, no, I'm happy to be here, sir. Yeah, we're gonna be talking something fun, man. Idea we had to talk about some space movies leading up to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is kind of as we talked about, a mix of subspace genres because you got some comedy, you got some action, you got some fantasy, a few things. You definitely get some dark moments in this new one we'll talk about.
Yeah, we do.
As we'll get there, but until the end of the show. But yeah, just to talk about some we don't get a ton of space movies in general, so we wanted to kind of dig into the past and focus on some ones that bounce around the genres a little bit.
Yeah, and we decided to go away from your Star Wars and your Star Trek because that's
Right. That's because we could talk. Well, we could talk separately about Star Wars and Star Trek
yeah,
and their own shows. We want to dig into some other things. And really three movies that aren't part of franchises. One has a sequel, but
right.
mainly are just kind of standalone movies that we could talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of these I hadn't seen,
Mm,
so I was excited to
yeah.
watch that one, and that movie is Event Horizon. I had
Oh, you
never
want to talk
seen.
about that first? Let's
Let's
talk
let's
about that
jump
first.
into this one because I know you had mentioned
Ooh, yeah.
you were hoping to were you able to rewatch it?
Yes, I was able to rewatch it today. I rewatched, even though I was very tired. What I did was I watched half of it on my break in my car today, and then I was able to squeeze in the last half right before I went to sleep as I was kind of winding down. So, yeah, I didn't necessarily need to, but I wanted to, for especially for all three of these. But yeah, Event Horizon was one I suggested because I just think we don't get a lot of space horror. When you think space horror, obviously, what does everybody think? Alien, right? Like that's the
Oh, I
first
was
thing
gonna
that
go Jason X.
Jason X. Hey, I can talk Jason X if you want to talk Jason X, Jacob. I can
No,
talk
I
Jason
don't
X
hate
for
the
all.
movie. I
Yeah, I
enjoyed
no,
it.
I think that movie's a lot of fun, but that's another topic for another show. But yeah, I mean, the first thing everybody thinks about is Alien or Aliens or something. We think
Right.
about that franchise because that's just the first one. That's the most prominent one. And yeah, you have your little ones here. You get really bad ones like a Dracula 3000 or just some goofy stuff, or Hellraiser 4 kind of is in space, or Leprechaun in space, whatever.
Mm,
But I think this is one that people are kind of coming around on because this movie got some crap when it came out. It didn't get very favorable reviews if you dig into the Rotten Tomatoes stuff.
mhm.
I don't really understand why. I think it's fairly well done for the most part, and I think there's a lot to dig into on this one, Jacob. So I'm glad you were able to watch it because I think this movie's pretty underrated, especially for '90s horror.
I liked it,
You liked it? Did love it? Okay,
but
let's
I
talk
I
about it.
didn't
Oh,
love
yeah.
it.
Okay.
I thought it really ramped up at the end. I think the ending is
Yeah.
amazing. I loved the ending, but it just felt like we were kind of at like this pace.
Okay.
We'd go up and down sometimes, but it just I don't know. It just like if I don't know what it was. I think I need to rewatch it
Okay.
because I liked it, but there was nothing that like is sticking out to me. Like that ending, like I said,
Mm.
is really good, and you have it ends with like what's her name, Stark,
Yeah,
just like
Stark and
freaking out because she's coming out of a stasis, and the first thought she has is Sam Neill's character taking off the mask,
sure.
the rest
Yeah.
of the team. And by the way, his face, like they did a really good job on that. Like
Oh no, the stuff
the
at the
makeup
end
and everything.
when he's like got all the cuts all over himself, and he's especially the part of stuff where he's bald and he's really freaky looking, like he's
Yeah,
really scary. And even the stuff when yeah, Sam Neill's great in this movie, by the way. We should say, yeah, Sam Neill and Lawrence Fishburne are kind of our main stars.
yeah, right.
At least just to throw, like, if anybody hasn't seen it, like the basic plot out of the way, just before we got to get into the base of, like, so it's a crew. They've got a ship, and called the Lewis and Clark, which I thought was cool, just for a name. And they're going to explore the disappearance of a ship called the Event Horizon. Hence the name of the movie. And yeah, Sam Neill is kind of the one that's tagging along with them, who's not part of the crew, and he's the scientist guy who invented this drive that can bend space and time and kind of basically create a black hole and to jump from like one end of the universe to the other. It's kind of what Interstellar does before Interstellar. Like there's a scene in Interstellar where they actually literally do the same thing that Sam Neill does, where he uses a piece of paper with the pen inside. They rip it off directly that Sam Neill does in this movie. So I will say that's kind of interesting. But yeah, and so they end up like kind of finding the ship. It's adrift, and there's mysterious recordings, and there's blood kind of scattered here and there. There's even some body parts. There's just weird stuff. They're trying to kind of piece together the puzzle of what happened, and it basically, little spoiler alert for all these movies that we're going to talk about, but they were, instead of going to a part of a universe, they opened up a portal to another dimension, specifically a hell dimension. So all the crew got basically sucked to hell, essentially, before they got taken off the ship. And Sam Neill gets sort of slowly possessed by it. Some of the other crew members get kind of possessed by it slowly but surely. And yeah, Lawrence Fishburne's the captain of the ship, who I'll give him credit. I think he's a fairly smart captain in the movie, as far as like he's trying to do his job safely. He's trying to do things logically, but at the same time, when it finally hits the fan or there's evidence that things are not going well, he has no problem going, "We're leaving. Fuck this ship."
Yeah, because he stayed calm most of the time. I'm like, you can show a little emotion here. Like maybe that's just the sign of a good captain, I guess.
It's a sign of a good captain. I think this is
like.
This is 2 years before The Matrix, and I would not be surprised if somebody saw this and saw how stoic he was as kind of this captain, and would like consider that for Morpheus, because if you remember, he's like the captain of that ship in there, and I think it's just the signs of a good captain. He's the one that stays level-headed pretty much the entire movie, to where the other people start freaking out. And it's not that he doesn't believe the people. There's a sequence where his rescue guy that kind of lasts the entire movie sees something, and everybody's starting to see something, and he's doing a back and forth between the rescue guy and Sam Neill, and Sam Neill is trying to say like, well, it could have created a distortion and you could have seen whatever. And he goes, now listen, doctor, I believe my guy saw something, but like I don't like not believe him, you know what I mean? But right. I will look to you for a possible logical explanation, but don't disrespect my guy. I believe that he saw something. So like I think he's able to ride that line to kind of keep everybody calm throughout the movie.
Yeah, and the guy you're mentioning, I thought he had some good like comic relief moments. Yeah, I thought what was his name, Richard T. Jones or something like that.
Yeah. I've seen him in a couple other things, but I don't.
When I first saw him, I was like, oh, it's the guy from Why Did I Get Married? I don't know why that was the first movie that popped into my head when I saw him, but it was.
Yeah.
He played kind of like the douchebag who was cheating on his wife.
Oh, okay.
In that movie. Yeah, but that's a discussion for another time. Join us next week when we talk to Tyler Perry.
We might never do that show. That'll be a podcast about movies without Pez. All right. So, yeah. Good luck with that one. Have fun. I'll watch along at home.
Yeah, it was good. I thought they played the hallucination scenes really well.
Yeah.
Like just some of the imagery is pretty dark.
Yes.
Like the kid with all the injuries to his legs, and when she later on, that same kid, which causes her to fall, and
right,
they didn't shy away from blood in this movie.
Well, and that's the funny thing, Jacob, is I should mention that when this movie finally came out or was starting to come out on, this is the Scream Factory Blu-ray that I have, there was a lot of discussion about Scream Factory trying to get a hold of some footage that the studio cut from this movie. There's kind of an elusive, or at least some footage that is supposed to be pretty gnarly that got cut from this movie, especially when Sam Neill grabs Lawrence Fishburne and is like, let me give you a little taste of like what it is. And we get that really quick flashing sequence
Mm-hmm.
of like everybody being tortured in the hell dimension and stuff, but it's all these quick flashes. That sequence was supposed to be way longer, like
Mm.
way more fleshed
Yeah, 'cause
out.
this is only like a 90-minute movie.
Yeah, this movie, I think the original cut was a little over 2 hours. There's supposed to be like a 2 hour and 15-minute cut out there somewhere, but it's been hard to get because I think the negatives were hard to get a hold of or something. The
Mm.
director of this movie, yeah, it's Paul W.S. Anderson, by the way, who directed Mortal Kombat right before this, the '95 one, and then went on to do the Resident Evil movies. But yeah, this might be his best made movie. You can make that argument.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
he has said that there's a cut of this movie that is both longer, that fleshes out the characters a little bit more, and is way like more uncut, like blood wise, and gets pretty gross, especially with that kind of stuff near the end. So I've always wanted to see that cut, but I don't know if it'll ever happen. This movie's
right.
out on 4K now, and we still don't
Yeah.
have it. So I don't know. We've seen pictures of it that they put out online and things. So yeah, it only kind of glimpses into it, but it would be interesting to see if that would flesh it out, or if, like you said, you kind of thought, it didn't really, it wasn't terribly exciting till kind of the second half, till it really amps up.
Yeah, there were moments like I
Yeah.
said, the hallucinations. Words are
Yes.
hard sometimes.
Yes.
I thought were great, well done, but yeah, if we could just like flesh out the characters a little bit more, because Justin, when he, it's like, oh
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that happened.
I'm
It's
sorry
like,
that happened. We hardly knew
we
you.
hardly know you though, so but
Yeah.
so like if we could know more about him, and then like maybe that would get me to care a little bit more.
Well,
when,
and
when
there's the one
which
lady, like you said, who sees like her kid, and she starts chasing after her kid, and then falls to her death. But it's like, okay, I didn't know your backstory anyway. So like, why this is the first we're hearing of
It's like, I'm
something
just
happening
guessing
with
that
your
you've
kid?
been here for a long time and you haven't seen your kid for probably what,
Yeah.
6
Well,
months, a
everybody,
year.
yeah, because it's supposed to be this idea where it starts to tap into like you have some kind of secret or something happened to somebody in your family that you've kept from everybody. Lawrence Fishburne has a thing where his one of his crew members, he had to kind of lock in a chamber and was on fire, and had to leave behind, which is why he says that he won't ever leave anybody behind again, and
Mhm.
and he tries to save everyone, and they kind of dig into that a little bit, but again, we just get real quick flashes of it. Sam Neill's wife apparently committed suicide because he was working so much, and has a thing where she's like gets into the tub and like slices her wrists. And yeah, everybody has like a thing, but we only get bits and pieces of that. So I will
Mhm.
agree with you there that you kind of wish we had separately kind of dug into everybody's thing to when they start bringing it up. It's like it's kind of out of nowhere when they start bringing it up. It's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, hey, by the way, I got this secret, and yeah, that would be something if everybody had their own little secret and we kind of fleshed them out throughout the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that yeah, that's what I was missing, because I didn't, like I said, I didn't hate the movie, but I didn't love the movie. I'm like kind of like right in the middle right now.
Sure.
But I
Yeah.
do think that like as when the horror ramps up in that ending, like it really picks
Yeah.
up. I love the ending. I think, yeah, the back and forth between Lawrence Fishburne and Sam Neill,
Mhm.
in that like kind of like pool of blood almost. Great
Yeah.
stuff. That the ending, kind of, it's one of those endings too that kind of like what are these characters doing next? Because the male character, what I can't remember his name, he seems fine. But
Yeah,
then you
so
have
it's
Stark,
it's
who's
it's so it's Stark and Cooper, yeah, that
Cooper. Okay,
survive. Yeah, and
Cooper.
Cooper's like the rescue guy, so he's a rescue guy, so he keeps coming up with inventive ways to get back to the ship. He's kind of drifting around like in a spacesuit the whole time, but he's pretty resilient. Like he keeps,
Mm-hmm.
coming back. But yeah, they're the ones who kind of survive because Lawrence Fishburne sort of sacrifices himself, blowing up the ship to make sure they can get away. And kind of a reversal, they have to leave him behind, instead of him leaving somebody else behind. But yeah, it's like, yeah, the ending is a little ambiguous to where you could see a total scenario where maybe the ship fooled them into thinking they were able to escape, but they're still there, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you wake up from this thing thinking you're okay and you're not. That's kind of a classic horror ending. Or maybe they got out, but they're going to have these like PTSD flashbacks for the rest of their life that are going to haunt them about this dimension that's going to linger with them.
Yeah. Yeah, so I really enjoyed the ending. I think, yeah, everyone involved, they like the acting was
Yeah.
solid all around. Yeah, but I think, yeah, Sam Neill and Lawrence Fishburne are obviously the standouts. But yeah, I think I'm gonna need to rewatch. This was my first time And
Yeah,
so maybe, but maybe I was just missing those, you know, I want to know these characters and
yeah, yeah.
why
Mhm.
should we care about them leading up to, like, why are these their hallucinations?
Right.
What that I think that's what I was missing. But sometimes not knowing, like, there is like a sort of I guess a paranoia horror feel to this because
Right.
um you know is that there, is that not there, like
Hmm.
there were moments like when what was it, like there was a pounding on the door and like
Yeah.
that big noise, did that actually happen, did it not, like, you don't know. And so I guess, yeah, but yeah, as far as space horror, like, yeah, I would love to see more because this was a good movie. It was well done.
Yes.
I think some of the effects were really good. Like I said, the
There's definitely
makeup.
a couple of bad CGI effects when they first get there, like where there's like liquid floating around, like the bad,
Yeah,
like
it was almost like they
mid
wanted to make it
'90s.
3D because there was one
Yeah,
like went right to the screen. Like, was that
uh,
like supposed to be a 3D moment?
yeah, like it comes up to I think they call him Baby Bear, but just yeah, and he like
Yeah, yeah,
flicks
yeah.
like he flicks like a thing of liquid or something like right at the screen, and you're like, are you guys like, yeah, what is this? Event Horizon in 3D? Yeah, what is it? What is going on there? Yeah, I mean, it's that definitely like mid '90s CGI that's not great, but I think all the practical stuff they do, yeah, like you said, the makeup, especially with Sam Neill, even the stuff where they see him after a while and he's in the captain's chair and he spins around and he's sewed like the flesh over his eyes,
Oh
to where
yeah.
after he
Oh
rips
my
his eyes
goodness.
out and he's just being, really creepy, talking about how, you'll never leave here, she'll never let you leave, the whole thing. Like that stuff is creepy. Like Sam Neill's great and he can tell he committed to this. And I certainly appreciate that. But yeah, there's a lot of actual practical blood. There's the stuff with Jason Isaacs where
We didn't even
it's
mention that.
just
Yeah.
it's a cut, but then you see him like hanging upside down over a table, completely split wide open, surgically. And like it's almost like something out of Hellraiser where he's kind of strung up by these chains and he's been pulled open. Like it's pretty gnarly. Like there's some they don't stray away from a lot of that stuff. And yeah, apparently it was even crazier, with the longer cut somewhere.
Mm.
That
Yeah,
got
if
even
we could
nuttier.
get that, that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be fun, and I'm sure it would. Some of it, would flesh out some of that character stuff too, because I know a lot of that stuff was. This movie got interfered a lot with the studios.
Mm.
Like that was from what I've seen in the behind the scenes. So, yeah, I'd like to see a longer cut. I don't know if we'll ever get it, but yeah, there's something about this movie, Jacob, that keeps bringing me back to it. Like about once a year, I will go back and watch this movie because there's something. I think it's still intriguing enough, and
Hmm.
I like the mysterious element of it. And yeah, when it gets crazy, it gets pretty fun and crazy, but. I think it's well made enough to where there's something that pulls me back. It'll never like make my 128 or anything like that. But yeah, like there's something about this movie I just really like that I keep coming back to.
Yeah, and yeah, and I can totally see that. Like, I just,
Yeah,
like I said, maybe I need to rewatch it.
sure,
But yeah, it was. I'm glad I did watch it because yeah, it was. I
totally.
like the horror aspect. I like the effects. The makeup. Um, like, I didn't realize how cold it was until that body dropped, and apparently it was frozen, and it just smashed
Just
into.
smashed up, yeah.
That was
No,
yeah,
that
like,
was cool. Yeah, when they react to the gravity and then it just smashes into a million pieces. Yeah, there's cool stuff like that. A lot of stuff was
yeah.
practical, which I dug.
And I guess
Yeah.
like some of like the scientific aspects of it were like actually real, and like that's
Mhm.
actually how it should be. So
Yeah.
kudos to them for like actually paying attention.
Hey, kudos to Paul W.S. Anderson for not making a total like video game type of movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For actually like getting into it. Yeah, because he's not the most acclaimed filmmaker in the world, but he makes fun movies like again
Yeah.
that and the Mortal Kombat movie from '95. It's not a perfect movie by any stretch, but it's a fun movie.
Right.
It's a popcorn movie that you can come back to and watch. And yeah, a couple of those Resident Evil movies are in that same vein, but not the best. But yeah, it's I just think it's a really fascinating movie that yeah, it's never gonna crack like a best horror movies of all time or anything like that, but I just think it's a really cool curiosity because again we don't get a lot of decent good horror movies in space. And one of the things I like about horror movies in space is there's nowhere to run. You're kind of
Right.
screwed.
Yeah.
If things go wrong, you're kind of screwed. Your ship blows up. Uh-oh. What do
So
we do? Where do we go?
yeah.
you know
So one time you might want to go behind the locked door.
right. For sure. There's nowhere
Um,
else to go. So yeah.
all right. Well,
Where do you want to go next?
let's move on. So we go from a horror. Let's have some fun.
Oh, some comedy. Let's do
Let's
some,
have some
yeah.
fun now.
Let's get a little
Um, yeah,
Galaxy Quest.
Galaxy Quest. Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful
Ooh.
steelbook. Ooh.
Yeah. This isn't my steelbook, but it's the same cover. Yeah. I don't know how.
Although I will be totally honest, I was very lazy today, and
Watched on
Event
Netflix like I
no,
did.
well, no, Paramount, because Event Horizon was on Paramount, and so
Okay.
was Galaxy Quest. So instead of getting up and walking over to my shelf, I just oh, okay, let's watch Galaxy Quest now.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Galaxy Quest is about this cast uh, of the show called Galaxy Quest, who are doing these, conventions. It's been, I don't know how long it's been since the show. I think they said
It's
lately
kind
around
of
18 years.
Yeah, they're
Uh,
saying it's close to roughly like if it's set in like 99 or 98, like you can say they probably did the show in the late 70s. So roughly 20 years, maybe late 70s, early 80s.
yeah. So and the captain, the commander, is approached by these people from another planet, the Thermians, I
Yeah.
believe,
Yeah.
and who think he is a real commander and want him to come help them defeat Steris, who is kind of an enemy of theirs, and he accepts, thinking it's another gig. He gets his cast members on board, and they soon find out that it's not just another gig; it is real,
Mhm.
and so they're trying to help as much as they can, while also trying to get home safely. And movie, it's Tim Allen, Sigourney, it's a stack cast. Tim
Yeah.
Allen,
Oh, yeah.
Sigourney Weaver, Sam Rockwell. Who am I missing?
Alan Rickman,
Alan Rickman. Oh my goodness! Wow.
Tony
Tony
Shalhoub.
Shalhoub.
Yeah, I mean, even some of the side people, Justin Long shows up as like he helps them out at the end. Yeah, I mean, almost everybody you see kind of pop up throughout that. Rainn Wilson pops up just
Oh
briefly
yeah.
as one of the aliens. Missy Pyle, who you'd recognize, she was Mrs. Beauregard, or Mrs. Beauregard in the Charlie and Chocolate Factory movie. She's in Dodgeball, like you'd recognize her if you saw her.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, almost everybody you see kind of pop up throughout the movie is somebody. You could make an argument this might be Tim Allen's best live action role next to Santa Claus. Like, I think he's really great in this movie. Like, he's really
Yeah.
charismatic and really fun. And because you could argue that Buzz Lightyear is probably his best role overall. But yeah, I mean, this one, as far as his live action stuff, man, like he's really good in this movie. He's really charismatic. He carries it really well. He's got this narcissism where he likes the attention, and he actually does the conventions sort of willingly, but I think it's because he's latching on to the thing that this one thing that made him famous, and he never really did anything else outside of that.
Mhm.
So he's prides himself on being this actor, but he can't. Same with Alan Rickman, is this like thespian, but he never got a chance to really showcase his acting chops outside of this show, and they kind of talked about that throughout the thing. I love Sigourney Weaver, and she is so sexy in this movie. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to be
Yeah.
that guy, but she is, man. Like the blonde hair does it for me. I dig it.
Yeah, she looks good as a blonde.
Yeah, she looks really good. But yeah, she's really funny as well. Like her freakouts and stuff are great, and her character where on the show, all she did was just repeat everything the computer said, which is hilarious. And she
I have
finds herself
one job on this ship.
Yeah, let me do my job.
Let me do it.
No, it's great. Yeah, all she does is repeat everything, kind of in layman's terms. It's fun. Yeah, Sam Rockwell as the kind of, it's a take on the red shirt security guy, essentially, that Star Trek would have, where they would do like an away team. There'd always be one guy in a red shirt who would always die, and that's
Do
what
I
it is.
even have a last name?
Yeah, no, he's just Guy, so they call him Guy. And it's he's scared the whole movie because he's like, I'm the expendable guy. I'm the guy that's gonna die. I'm not coming back. I'm not a cast member.
What if you're the plucky comic relief?
Ooh, yeah,
Yeah,
and
no,
it's so fun. Yeah, it's just and we should say it's not a TV show, Jacob. It's a historical document, as the
historical document. Yes,
yes.
Yeah, show them the historical
The
document.
historical documents, yes. That the Thurians, because they take it literally that these guys were flying around in the Protector, doing all these adventures, and they designed the entire ship based on their movements and based on where everything is placed. And it's so much fun. I love the people who play the Thermians, and I'm trying to pull his name up right now. It's Enrico Colantoni, who plays Mathazar, the kind of main
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
And he's really good. He's really, really great. Like, I think he's really charming, and kind of his innocence, in talking to them. And man, the scene where they're oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I'd like to see the sequel that they kind of teased at the end of this movie that we never got. That's one that, yeah, we never got a sequel that I could totally see them doing with the Legend Continues thing or whatever. Um, but yeah, I think the one scene that kind of breaks my heart every time is when they start to break to him that, like, we're actors, like it's not real, after he's kind of been tortured, and you see like the
yeah.
heartbreak, but then they
He
spin it to
lied.
where it's like, oh, what a great deception. You told us that to defeat Sarek or whatever, so they're able to kind of save it and keep the magic alive. But yeah, the villain Saris is, he seems kind of corny at first, like one of these like goofy villains, but like he's pretty ruthless, and he turns out to be a pretty decent little villain.
Yeah, he was torturing them, and yeah, there's the moments where I was like, ooh, like you could see they didn't show it on screen, but apparently it got because you could just see all the different cast members, reacting to whatever they were being shown, and yeah, I could only imagine. And then we kind of see it later when he's torturing Mathazar with whatever that is, turning him into like that octopus creature.
Oh yeah, no, that was crazy because it's like he's electrocuted him with like a cattle prod, but it's creating this. Yeah, because they're actually like these sort of squid octopus looking creatures that are taking like a human form. There's a good gag with it though, when Tony Shalhoub is kind of hooking up with Missy Pyle, like the one female, and then like they're making out, and you see like the like one squid tail or whatever kind of creeping up behind him, and he kind of looks at it at first, and then he's like, why not?
I was just like, oh no,
no, oh god, oh jeez. But Tony Shalhoub's like, screw it, man. I'm like probably in my 50s or 60s, like why not? Like let's go for something new, which I thought was funny. It was very, very funny. Yeah, Rockwell has some good reaction shots. He's great. Yeah, this is way before he was kind of famous too. Like, so
yeah, because this is 99.
99, yeah. And even before Justin Long, who looks really young in this movie. Oh my god, he looks like a kid in this movie. And he kind of plays it basically like a high schooler ish, who's obsessed with the show. And yeah, I like the aspect that they dig into fairly accurate stuff about like Comic-Cons, especially they're doing a take of like Star Trek conventions, and these people who are kind of obsessed over every minor detail of the show, and the cast could give two shits about that, where it's like, oh, can you tell us a debate in this episode of this scene, did he have this? And it's just like, who cares, bro? Like it's
just a
show.
TV show.
Yeah, it's just a TV show, and but it pays off because again, we're talking about the whole movies, but it pays off because they have to go shut down like this core, and they're trying to navigate the ship. And who do you call? You call the nerds who have mapped out their entire ship, on blueprints and on their computer, and know every minute detail of the show. And it's a nice payoff for like those uber nerds who do all that, to be able to kind of be the heroes in the movie. Like it's pretty cool. Like I dig it.
Yeah, because the entire ship was built around the show, like the ship that was on the show. Like it's the same thing. Like, yeah, but I saw, but that ship's like this big.
Yeah, right.
I saw hundreds of rooms, plywood sets. Like,
yeah.
Like you believe something so much, and it's just heartbreaking when it's.
Yeah. Well, and the sequence where they have to go through that one hallway with like the crushers, and they're just like, who designed this for just the middle of the hallway?
Whoever wrote this episode deserves to die.
Yeah. It's just like, why is that in the middle of a ship, just in the middle of nowhere? And then they get to the actual thing where it's like, oh, just push the button. And they're like, that's it? Oh, I thought it'd be more complicated. No, we just push the button, but it doesn't. It just, the timer just stops at 1 second because that just
always stops at 1
show. Oh, that's right. Like I like the play on the TV cliffhangers, and all the things in the show they kind of play into it in the actual design. Like that stuff's fun. Yeah, this movie's just a blast, man. I always forget how fun this movie is every time I come back to it. I've seen it 3 or 4 times over the years, but I always forget how much fun it is, like once it gets going. And yeah, it's not too long. It's like an hour and 40 minutes. Like it's a breezy movie. And yeah, I just love all the performances are great. And Yeah, it's got the cool hero moments when you need it, and really really funny comedic moments. Yeah, throughout the whole thing, it's great. You
Yeah.
know, I even love like the little corny things that all those cast members, even guys like Adam West and the Batman back in the '60s would do, where they'd be opening like a store, with the ribbon cutting, and they're just like, by Grabthar's hammer, I've never seen savings like this in the entire galaxy. Just like the corny stuff you're supposed to say at these things.
Yeah.
I really like all that stuff, and yeah, and even just the general setup of, Jason Nesbitt has been doing fan films for Galaxy Quest in people's basements, just as side gigs in between the conventions, like, and that's what he thinks the initial interaction is going to be like. They're great little details that if you're a nerd, if you're into this kind of nerd culture, like, you can go back and appreciate for this movie. It's aged really really well.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, and I the way they speak, the Thermians,
Oh god.
just the way they speak. Like I don't know how long filming took, but having to talk like that every day, like I don't know, like I would.
We designed it around your movements. That's sort of like,
the way they laugh too.
yeah.
I the other guy that was I can't remember his character's name, but like it was the guy from The Ringer. He played one of the athletes in The Ringer. He was pretty funny too. Like I think casting all around.
Yeah.
They all were really good. There were lots of moments where I laughed out loud. Just like, I think this is a really well written, smart script playing off the Comic-Con. Kind of before, I don't know like how big it was in the 90s, but it's definitely huge now.
It was getting bigger at the time, but yeah, even the San Diego Comic-Con in the 90s was definitely not what it is now. It's like, but they were more playing off of how in the 80s those individual Star Trek convention and sci-fi conventions starting to kind of pop up around the country, and they were a little bit smaller, so it'd be a very niche thing. Like, you get 1,000 people at the convention, and it's all Star Trek fans or something. And that was the thing that was very exclusive to kind of science fiction and even horror to a degree at the time. We don't see Gilligan's Island conventions, and I love the little joke about Gilligan's Island. Oh, those poor people. Yeah, stuck on that island. Yeah, because they think that's a historical document, anything to see on TV.
What if they were remaking this now?
Yes.
What shows do you think they would
my
use?
God. I hope they don't. Yeah, it's like, what's a show that has a nonsensical premise that, or just that
Lost?
Maybe like Lost would be kind of the updated version of like Gilligan's Island,
or Walking Dead,
or they would probably just think that like all these Avengers and like superheroes were real on Earth, and that every 2 seconds there's a cataclysmic event on Earth that they're trying to fix, or some kind of Earth-ending. They would think that all these superhero movies are real, that they're always happening. There's people with superpowers. They would, if you did a remake that's kind of similar, if you had abducted the Avengers and said like, we've got Captain America and Thor and the Hulk, we need you guys to save us, but like, no, we don't really have superpowers. Like, that's pretend, like that's a thing. It would be something like that, because you could also play into the nerd, geek stuff. I think it would be something where we abduct all the MCU people, and these aliens think that they really can fight cosmic, baddies, that sort of thing.
Galaxy Quest 2, starring Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, it can't be any worse than Ghosted or some of these other movies that they're
I haven't seen
right
Ghosted
now.
We'll hold out.
Can't be any worse.
Kidnap Ben Affleck as Batman.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, you get Henry Cavill. He's Superman, right? Like, you can fight anybody. No, like, I'm a very beefed up guy. I'm in shape. But,
Hugh Jackman's no longer Superman, actually.
Yeah, so Hugh Jackman's he's like, how long it takes to get cut from Wolverine? I have to work out for like 6 months. I don't always look like that. Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think this is a movie. While it doesn't need a remake. Because this one is it's so good. If they did, like, there's plenty of ways you could go with it. I mean, and if they are doing like a series, like Brian said in the comments, then there's definitely ways you can do it that I think would work as like kind of an update. But no, this one is was pretty great. And I'm glad I rewatched it because it had been a while, and I forgot how just how funny this movie is.
Yeah, it's just
Like,
very
it's
charming and
hilarious.
funny. Yeah, it's very, very funny. Yeah, a lot of the little things they dig into, and yeah, all the character beats are perfect. Yeah, everybody kind of does their job well. Like even the stuff where they cut back to Tony Shalhoub and he's just parroting what they say. So they're telling me that the core is going down or something, just the way he kind of flatly, delivers his things, and he's just kind of rolling with it the whole time, like he's
Yeah,
all
like he's the only one when they first get
get
to
there.
the ship. He's
Yeah.
like, "What's their problem?"
Yeah, right. He's like, because he's bored, so it's like whatever. This is cool for him. Yeah, and yeah, Sam Rockwell with all of his complete freakouts because he thinks he's gonna die the entire time, and he has a nice payoff where
Yeah,
they revive the show and make him like a supporting character. Actually, he becomes like the security chief or whatever. Like that's fun. That's a nice little payoff, and yeah, Rickman gets his moments, where he gets to act and. He has. I like that he's wearing the stupid makeup thing the entire time. Like he never takes it off or anything. It's just on his head the whole time. Like that's fun. And yeah, Sigourney Weaver's always talking about how people just watched it because her boobs are pushed up, and that's all the only reason anybody watched her or likes her. Yeah, it's a good time, man. Like I dig this movie a lot, and yeah, I don't know if it would ever crack my top 100, but yeah, it's very, very fun, and I'm glad we watched it for sure.
yeah. I'm glad it was one of the movies.
Yeah,
So doing probably a complete 180 here.
sure.
Because the next one is probably just one of the best movies made. Period.
Yeah.
2001: A Space Odyssey, directed, of course, by Stanley Kubrick.
Yes.
Released in 1968. Um, uh, this is a movie. This is a great movie. I actually just got done rewatching it.
Yeah.
And I forgot how little dialogue there is in this movie.
There's only 40 minutes of dialogue in this movie. 40 minutes.
Yeah, I was rewatching it, and
yeah.
And I was like, literally, I had to set up the stream too while I was watching it, and I'm over here doing stuff, getting ready, looking up, and I'm like, it's been like 15 minutes, and I haven't heard a word.
Talk there. Yeah, no, it's just these extended shots of them flying around the moon, and just flying back and forth in these extended space sequences. Even the opening of the film, yeah, no, it's fine. I love the movie. Like Chris I get why people don't like the movie. We'll get into it, but I think this movie I could talk for 3 hours about this movie. We're not going to, but I could do a whole show. I could do a whole show. We're not going to get super deep into it, but I think there's so much to this movie to where it almost transcends movies to where it's this experience. It's really something to where you also have to put yourself in the context of the time. 1968, nobody had ever done anything like this at all. This was a completely new thing.
Like nobody all the sci-fi you got at the time was like this, low budget
Forbidden Planet type stuff. Cardboard,
flat sets.
Flat sets, silly stuff. Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't even get Star Wars for another essentially 10 years after this. I mean, this was a movie that I think still holds up really well to this day. I think the space sequences are gorgeous the way he did this. I mean, they're incredible. Like when you first see,
they look just as good as the Star Wars did, and that was, like you said, 10 years later.
10 years later, and really this was like almost 15 because he started filming this in 65. This movie took 3 years to put together. But yeah, like when we make that cut, and it's a really iconic cut when the man ape like throws the bone up in the air and then it comes back down to like the space station. Like it's a great cut, and yeah, that spinning space station looks amazing. The different shuttles, that are going back and forth to the classical music. It's just they're beautiful sequences. And I will say, what's your history with this movie? Because I have an interesting history.
This is the second time I watched it, actually.
That's it. Okay. Yeah. So
So
you'd seen it before, but only one.
Mhm.
Okay. So I had always kind of danced around this movie, and I want to say it was around 2008. I saw the first time I sat down to fully watch this movie, luckily, was in the theater. I got to see this in the theater.
Nice.
So, and I think it was at the time was like, I guess the 40th anniversary or something. Because this movie's 55 years old, which is kind of crazy. It looks like you could have made it yesterday. Like,
yeah, some of the effects of it are.
It looks the cinematography. Oh my god, this movie's gorgeous.
Yeah, because and Kubrick was involved in like just about every
Everything.
aspect
Oh,
of the
it's a
movie.
Kubrick
Like
movie. He's always involved in every aspect of all of his movies, other than Spartacus. Yeah. But yeah, I saw this in a theater. The Cinemark, the one near me in Jacksonville, had the XD screen, which is like the one with the extra sound, and it was kind of their biggest screen. And they showed a lot of old movies. I saw a lot of old movies for the first time on the big screen, which was really cool. And yeah, this one, the first time I sat down and watched it was in the theater, which helps. It definitely helps to see this in the theater because man, when they make those cuts and these sequences where they're blasting the classical music, dun, 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 you know, all this music that you know, the Ric Flair theme, you know, which is the 2001: A Space Odyssey theme, you know, that opens the movie. You know, it's tremendous music that just fits perfectly. But yeah, you get engrossed into this ride, and you're just taking this ride. Yeah, it's not the most plot driven, narrative driven movie. It's just about the evolution of man and this journey that mankind is taking, you know, being assisted by this monolith. Like that's the most basic plot you could put down there. And then you have a sequence within the movie where you could break it down about this Jupiter mission being sabotaged by a supercomputer and AI, you know, essentially. And but like, yeah, other than that, there's not a lot of plot to this movie. You know, it's not like Star Wars where it's good versus evil, rebels and empire, and you know all this junk like that. You know, you can dig into it. It's just all metaphorical stuff and themes that you can dig into. But man, like I just think it's some of the there's always something to go back to with this movie. Every time I sit down and watch it, there's something to dig into. That I get something new out of it. There's been so many theories about the movie and interpretations, and people write dissertations on this movie. You know, there's documentaries. There's all kinds of stuff about what Kubrick is trying to say with this, with the evolutionary aspect, jumping from point to point in human history, about everything possibly being, you know, the journey of a sperm becoming a child, you know, is one thing about a movie. You know, literally, you've got the theories that it's just all mythic. It's Homer's Odyssey. Like there's theories about this. It's literally 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it's the journey of Homer. You know, there's all kinds of just crazy, you know, interpretations. But again, there had never been anything like that at the time that challenged audiences because, you know, this same year this come out, like Dr. Doolittle is nominated for Best Picture. You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
And,
you know?
and this wasn't.
This wasn't. No, it was nominated for like direction, and the only thing it won for was for special effects. Like,
Yeah,
rightfully so. But yeah, it wasn't even nominated for Best Picture. Stanley Kubrick was nominated for director, and that was it. And I think it's because people just didn't know what to do with this movie. People walked out on this movie when it premiered, Jacob. A lot of half of the audience walked out and during the premiere. You know, it eventually made money over the years with other repertory screenings. But yeah, I think it was just because people didn't know what to do with it. Kids couldn't understand it; they wouldn't like it. Some adults don't like it. I mean, I love Chris, and I understand why he doesn't like a movie like this because it's not the most narrative heavy thing.
right.
But I just treat it as one of these experiences that you just have to just ride along with, you know.
Yeah, and I'm usually one that, you know, I too like a narrative driven
Sure.
story,
Mm-hmm.
but when it's done well
Yes.
and done nearly perfect,
Mm-hmm.
I can appreciate it and I can enjoy it, and that's what this movie is for me. Like because you can just tell that like you said the filming was in 1965 and the movie didn't release until 1968. Yeah. So you know, they took their time, and probably, you know, the technology back then isn't what it is now. So I mean,
yes,
but you can tell, like you can tell they took their time just because some of the effects you could tell were an inspiration for Star Wars released 10 years later.
100%. Christopher Nolan has. You look at Interstellar. This movie's all over Interstellar. Nolan has stated this is his favorite movie of all time. Like he adores Kubrick. You know, he takes a lot of inspiration from Kubrick, and yeah, you could tell like this movie inspired a lot of big time filmmakers. You know, probably guys like James Cameron and Ridley Scott, and you know all these guys who would come after that. I would not be surprised at all. Yeah, all these Steven Spielberg for Close Encounters, you know, and E.T. 100%. Yeah, dug inspiration from this thing totally. Like Kubrick, you know, regardless of what you think of how he films things, and you know, filming 90 takes of things, you know, over and over again. You know, he's a perfectionist, but I mean, the work is on screen, man, and it holds up that we still talk about this movie, you know, 50 years later.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. The epic rap battles of history did
Oh
it
no.
was a Hitchcock versus Spielberg, but then
Yeah.
they introduced Tarantino, Kubrick, and Michael Bay as well. And
Yeah.
one of Kubrick's lines was "Do another take 127 times."
Yeah. Right.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and it's funny that you mentioned like a bunch of directors. Drew inspiration from this because the Sight and Sound poll, the directors poll from last year,
Mhm.
this was number one.
Yes.
And for good reason.
If I made a top 10 list of like objectionably 10 movies that should be on the greatest movies of all time, yeah, this makes it every time.
Mhm.
Because is it my absolute favorite Kubrick movie? No, that's probably The Shining, just because it's the one I watch the most, you know.
Right.
And you know, I watch this more than that. But I have come to realize over the years, and we did that tournament fight, we all submitted like our four favorite directors. Like I had to finally realize once I sat down and finished his filmography that Kubrick is absolutely one of my favorite filmmakers, like 100%. Because there's only one movie that, oddly enough, with Wolfman of the Thing, there's only one movie I don't like that he loves, Barry Lyndon. I'm just not a fan of, because it's
I
like
still need to see that one.
because it's a period piece drama. I'm not a fan.
Right.
I've given it a chance twice, and I can't get into it. But that's the only one of his.
And it shows his range as a director because he's got
Oh
this
yeah,
big space epic. He's got The Shining, which is like regarded as one of the best horror movies of all time. A
right.
period piece in Barry Lyndon, a comedy in Doctor Strangelove. Like,
Yes.
oh my
Yeah,
god,
he's got a Vietnam movie with Full Metal Jacket. He's got this paranoia modern movie, you know, with Eyes Wide Shut. Yeah, he's got Clockwork Orange, this other crazy experimental dystopian movie, you know, kind of character piece. He's Lolita is like this, you know, uncomfortable kind of romance, you know, movie. Yeah, he's got a really wide range. Like there's no one Stanley Kubrick movie that's just like another Stanley Kubrick movie. They're
right?
all interesting and weird and yeah, influential. And like I love Paths of Glory, and that's a very straightforward movie, you know, about war and morality, and then the one that he didn't write and have full creative control, Spartacus, which he was just kind of a for hire director, is still a really good movie. It's still really well directed. But yeah, Paths of Glory is creeping into my top 100 like very, very quickly.
Mm.
But yeah, I had to realize when I put four of his movies in my 128, I was like, yeah, maybe he's one of my favorite directors of all time. He kind of has to be. And even a movie I didn't love, like Doctor Strangelove for the longest time, I'm starting to come around to, and I'm starting to really
Mm.
like the more I see it, because I didn't love it the first couple of times I saw it, but I kept giving it a chance. And you know, there's a quote that one of the podcasts I listened to, this guy Patrick Bromley, like said one time that he heard from somewhere where it was, the movie will never change, but you might. So
Right.
don't ever give up on a movie. You know that at least fascinates you, because you could always come back to it at a later time and see something you never saw before, or you change and you latch onto something. It's not his best film. I'm sorry. We'll talk about that on this. We'll talk about that. 2001. This is his best film. I'm sorry. It is. This is his best film. We'll talk about that on the show, Wolfman. I love you, buddy, but 2001 is his best film. Uh, we'll talk about it. But yeah, it's one of these things where yeah, I could talk about this movie all day and yeah, what it means and whatever. But if you haven't gone back to watch it, first of all, if you ever get a chance to see it in the theater, don't hesitate. Go
I
see
would
this in the
love to. Yeah.
go see this in the theater if you ever get a chance to. Like whatever plans you got to rearrange, just do it, because it's well worth it. Much like stuff like Lawrence of Arabia, or you know, these big movies that need demand to be seen in a theater. And secondly, yeah, just know going in, if you've never seen it, that it's gonna be this weird thing. And yes, there's intriguing stuff. All the house stuff is great. You know, as far as like that section of the movie that you could dig, I could do an hour in just that section of the movie about AI and you know, this computer and Hal being one of the great villains of all time, and a really intriguing just character, and how interesting all of his dialogue is, and how he's maybe the most compelling character in the movie. Yeah, like that stuff is fun. But yeah, like even just, you just have to know that you're in for a ride unlike anything else when you dig into this movie. And yeah, it's not always going to make sense. You know, it's not always going to be pew pew exciting, you know, bang bang, you know, laser blasts and sword fights and stuff. But it's a movie unlike anything else to this day, you know, that demands your attention.
Yeah. And this movie, still well received today. It's made a bunch of lists over the years.
Yes.
The motion in 2012, the motion picture editors listed the film as the 19th best edited film of all time.
Hmm.
It's number 6 on 50 films to see before you die.
Hmm.
Uh, the Village Voice placed it at number 11 of the 100 best films of the 20th century. It was Roger Ebert's number 2 of 1968. I don't have the list in front of me, so can't see what's in front of it. But
Yeah.
in 1995, the Vatican named it one of the 45 best films ever made. In 1998, Time Out conducted a readers' poll. In 2001, was voted number 9 on the list of the greatest films of all time. And Entertainment Weekly voted it number 26 on their list of 100 greatest movies of all time. And in 2017, Empire, the readers' poll ranked the film 21st. So it's, nearly 55 years later, and it's still it's still it's kind of relevant now with how like in AI kind of
Yeah.
becoming a bigger thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely stood up. The effects still look great.
Hmm.
Like you said, it could have been made this year, and you'd be like, oh
God,
yeah,
those shots of like during the house sequence when Dave is like walking through like those red corridors and stuff are just beautiful. I mean,
yeah.
I'm watching the 4K on this TV. Oh my God, like these shots are just
Yeah,
money. Just
great
oh
use of
man,
color
just
in this movie.
great use of color. Yeah, the space suits again, the crazy thing about Kubrick is like when he does these experimental movies, just the set designs, man. Even the stuff, it's not the most exciting things, in the movie, but when he gets to like the Space Hilton at the beginning, the Lockwood character, when they're talking about the stuff that's going on in the moon and just like the road because it's rotating, so you got like this low down, these
Mhm.
hallways that kind of rotate. They got these weird chairs and tables, and when they're doing the actual space flights, the Velcro shoes, and you got the stewardesses that are that one sequence where the studio stops and turns around and does the walk up the wall into the other hallway. Like even that stuff still works to this day. Where how they did it. It's a gimbal shot, where they're spinning the actual set and she's just walking in place. But you still go like, wow, that's really cool. Like that's what
Yeah,
movies do, man. You're just like, man, that is really, really damn cool. And you just watch it and appreciate how they came up with this stuff 50 years ago and how they had to because we didn't have CGI. We couldn't you can't impose a person into it. We didn't have green screens. We didn't have
right.
all this stuff. They had to get creative, which is why I like a lot of these older movies because everything's real and it feels real. The sequence on the moon, oh my God, when they discover the monolith on the moon and they're going down to the excavation site with the music, that creepy ass music that has been used, different things, is one of my favorite sequences in film history. Just the horror vibes it kind of has to it. It's creepy.
Yeah.
Ugh.
After this rewatch, this as far as scores go,
Yes,
this could be my favorite. It's up
it's really
there.
good.
The score is really good.
Mhm.
It definitely makes the movie helps the movie. So
Mhm.
like, oh my God, like I can't get over just
Well,
how
but he also
good
knows how
those
to
sequences
use
are.
just sound effects and silence throughout the film. It's one of those movies where you see these sequences where the astronauts are working in space and it's silent because there's no sound in space, or the sequence where he has to blow himself through the airlock, to get back in and it's all silent. You don't hear
Mhm.
anything. And there's some things where you just hear the breathing in the spacesuit. Like those types of things, or you just hear that with Hal in the background, just talking to him or whatever. Like it's all very meticulously designed and meticulously thought over
Yeah,
and given a lot of care, just technically speaking, and and still works. So yeah, it's just brilliant all around, man. I love this
yeah.
movie.
And
I
shout
just
out to the guy who voiced Hal. He was great.
yeah, I think his name is like Douglas Gain or something like that, or Douglas Rain. Did you know he did all that in one day?
No, wow.
He did the entire voiceover for Hal in one day. He nailed like, which is kind of
Hmm.
nuts given a Kubrick movie.
Right. Yeah.
He'd probably be doing things over and over and over again. But no, he did this all in one day. Those are all of his basic takes, essentially, like all in one day,
That's
which is kind of
amazing.
insane because it's an incredible voice performance. Like,
Yeah.
and again, he's the most fascinating character in the movie. And even just to go back and watch and think like What did he know? What did he not know? Was he really malfunctioning? Was he not malfunctioning? Was he lying? Was he manipulating them? Was he truly screwing things up? Did he actually have regret when he makes mistakes and he gets kind of caught and Dave is about to shut him down? That sequence is kind of crazy when you're feeling for Hal as he's pulling out the pieces of his brain essentially, and
Mhm.
he's slowing down and the speech is kind of, like
Yeah.
it's uh, that stuff you feel for a computer, almost to a degree, and a computer that just murdered all of the crewmates, while they're in suspended animation. This movie's it's so complicated, man, and so it makes you think, man, which is why I dig it, man. Like I could watch this movie once every couple of months and really get something out of it every time.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
definitely not a movie you just watch one time.
No, yeah, you
You
can't just
can't.
watch this movie. Oh my god, you can't watch this movie once. You have to. If you watch this movie once and give up on it, I'm sorry. Like, don't. Just don't do that.
Yeah. No.
This movie deserves your attention.
No, like I said, that ending where where it's just the music and we're flying over
Mm-hmm.
and it's just changing colors every time. I was setting up the stream and I stopped.
Yeah.
Because I was doing it right here. I stopped.
Because it's a 9-minute sequence where he goes
Yeah.
through the wormhole with all these colors and lasers, and there's
And
composite shots of
from
real
the
landscape.
plant to his eye, and
Yes,
man,
it's really
this movie
good.
is just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if I were to make a list of the 10, which we might have to do sometime.
What would we consider like objectionally like
Yeah,
what would be the 10 best movies ever made or something like that?
yeah, because
Yeah.
this is making the list for sure. But I'm
Yeah.
like, man, like filmmaking, even some of the acting. Like when my one nitpick is the little girl on the on
Is
the
the worst
phone
actress
call.
in the movie for the phone call, but that's it.
It's like
Yeah.
that's my one nitpick, and like if that's your nitpick of a child actress who probably didn't have any prior experience,
No.
might have just been the daughter of one of the
Probably.
crew members or something. Like if that's it, then
Yeah.
there's really
Not much
nothing
to complain
bad
about.
about
Yeah.
this movie.
Right.
So
Mhm.
no, this is great. I'm so glad I rewatched it because
Yes.
it's incredible. It's truly one of the best movies ever made,
Yeah.
and for it to hold up like it does 55
Sorry,
years
Chris.
later.
That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. It is. It's one of the greatest movies ever made, and
Chris
I will
doesn't
continue.
watch the show.
I will continue to watch it multiple times over and over again. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it works.
But the big release of the month so far, I say so far because Fast X comes out, and who knows, maybe that will just surprise everybody and be the best in the franchise.
I
Gotta remain optimistic.
I have my doubts, but maybe I'll go with low expectations as I always do to these movies.
I do like that there's actually like a race scene
Yeah,
in the movie,
that's
so
nice.
I am looking forward to that
Yeah.
because that's where it all started. But
Sure.
yeah,
It's been a
Vin
while
Diesel-
since they just had like a street race. I'll say that for sure in that damn series. Yeah.
Yeah, but Vin Diesel loves his family, and what better family is there in movies right now than the Guardians of the frickin' Galaxy?
Yeah.
Only he didn't say frickin'.
Freaking.
Yeah, like the banner says, there will be spoilers, but like I guess for the first few minutes, if people are
We'll
watching
talk spoiler
that
free
haven't
for a
seen
couple
it,
of minutes.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk for a couple minutes and then we'll dig into it. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what were your because you saw it opening day, right?
Yes.
Those 3 o'clock showings that you love.
Oh man, I love it. And please continue to do Thursday showings starting at 3 or 4 o'clock. Like I dig it. Yeah, please. The earlier the better. I'm all for it. Yeah, I saw it, and yeah, I didn't have my expectations have been tempered a lot lately because I've made no secret that I have not been a big fan of the MCU since Endgame, since where they left off with the Infinity Saga. I just feel like they're kind of floundering and flailing. There's not a lot of direction to where it's going right now. I'm not seeing a lot of connections between the movies as we did in the build up to the, in the Infinity Saga and the Thanos stuff. And, we're just playing around with, dimensions and, multiverses. And it's like, that's fun to a degree, but I kind of need a bigger picture, here that I'm still not seeing. Even we've already done a whole phase, and now we're in another phase. I still don't know where we're going.
Yeah.
I should know where we're going by now. We should, because by the end of because after the Avengers, even moving on, we knew they even in the Avengers talked about this greater threat that's out there, the guy that they were working for, Thanos, that he's out there, and even we jumped in the first Guardians movie, just tying it to Guardians, where you had that Thanos cameo, where you knew he was out there, he's kind of running the show, and we know he's a bigger threat. And but yeah, so I went into this not knowing what to expect, because sure, I think most people would agree Spider-Man No Way Home is probably the best movie they've done since then. But even then, that's more of a Sony movie than an MCU production. It just is. I hate to break it to you guys, but that's a Sony movie that ties into the MCU. But as far as the best pure MCU movie since Endgame, I would definitely say this is probably the best one since Endgame. Like, as far as that, the first one I've actually enjoyed all out. You know what I mean? I did not enjoy Eternals or Shang-Chi that much. It has its moments, but I didn't love Quantumania, Wakanda Forever, okay.
Yeah.
I've been very meh on a lot of these movies. Again, I just think they're lacking direction. But yeah, I was looking forward to this more than the other ones, because I like these characters and I like what James Gunn with this universe. I didn't love like the Suicide Squad, just me personally, because I just don't know if which is why I'm skeptical about the DC stuff. I don't know if his aesthetic fits well with DC. Like, we'll find out. Like, DC's a whole other animal. I just don't know. Like, and I didn't love his DC movie, so
Which is weird that his first movie that he's choosing to direct is a Superman movie, when he does really well with like kind of these characters that
these more misfit
casual fan
characters
doesn't know.
Yeah, like he he's better with like misfit characters or stories. Like, I could more see like, yeah, James Gunn direct that like Swamp Thing movie. Like, I could see you digging into that, like one of those crazy characters, or like doing a Justice League Dark movie. These kind of other characters. That are kind of a little crazier, a little darker or something. Like, yeah. Him directing Superman or like Batman, I don't know about that. Like, I'm skeptical, because I think it's the characters that have more of a comedic bend to it naturally. I think is maybe where he goes, because he does have a good sense of humor. Although this is probably the least funny out of all the three. I didn't feel this one was overly like jokey, like haha funny. There was funny stuff. But
which I think works kind of like for the tone of the movie.
Sure.
Like, I like that there's not, because I think that's what my problem with Thor: Love and Thunder was, is that there was too much, and so I think there was the right amount of comedy, because this is a dark movie. The flashback scenes that we see,
oh my god,
oh man, like some of that is just it's hard. Like, I can see some of the criticisms of that.
Yeah, we'll get into it more details in a minute. But
it's dark, and I like that there's not a lot of comedy. There is some, and it works when it's inserted. But yeah, like Guardians, I still say the first Guardians is probably like just the funniest of the MCU, and then Guardians 2 is probably the second funny. Like, this is a funny trilogy within the franchise, the MCU, but. Yeah, like, it doesn't beat you over the head with the comedy like a Thor: Love and Thunder did, which I liked. And I can agree that I love No Way Home. You know this. We've talked about this. Right. But yeah, outside of that, this is probably the best since Endgame. And I'm one that loved Shang-Chi. Like, I thought that movie was okay. I loved that. So, but I'm totally on board with this being the best. I wanted to I didn't want to get up out of the theater, because the theater I went to, this is the only movie that was showing. And I just wanted to say, like, hey, let's watch it one more time. But, and if I didn't have plans, I probably would have, let's be honest. Because I thought this movie was great. Nathan Fillion's character, absolutely. Sure. I think he was good. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a perfect blend of kind of like the serious tone but the comedy that James Gunn brings to these characters,
Yeah.
the action was top notch. The story I thought flowed really nicely. It was kind of like a search and rescue almost. We're gonna search for this thing. Oh,
Yeah.
it's not here. We gotta come over here. We're gonna get it.
Right.
I think it was a perfect ending for these characters, which we'll get into more specifics. But I think perfect ending. And yeah, if this is the last time we see these characters in any capacity, like I'm satisfied.
Yeah, we've gotten 3 really, and I even think people crap on Volume 2 kind of almost unfairly. I still think that movie has a lot of good things in it, and I don't hate that movie.
I'm one of those. I actually rewatched it after because I was like, oh, let me give it another shot, and I still think some of the Drax and Mantis stuff doesn't work for me personally, but
Right, they went a little meaner with the comedy, like some of it, yeah, back and forth. But even then, like, yeah, I think I still think the movie has some really really interesting stuff between like Star Lord and Ego. Like all that stuff I think is really good. I like all the Yondu stuff in that movie. I think is great. Like there's some good stuff in that movie that I think you
yeah.
could latch onto. The stuff with Gamora and Nebula, like their progression of their relationship is still good. So yeah, I think that movie's not as bad as people make it out to be. Like
I liked it better the last time I rewatched it.
I think this will be an example where I think when people sit down when this comes out, if they do like an afternoon marathon and watch all 3 back to back, I think they will flow really, really well. Because you can watch these 3 movies separately, I think, without having to watch like Infinity War Endgame in between or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I think these movies kind of exist. It's not that they exist outside the MCU to where they're not connected, but they kind of exist in their own little world to where I think because they take place in space, because they take place kind of off in the galaxy somewhere, they're not connected to Earth necessarily. I think they
other
exist
than Thanos.
They exist in this bubble of like you can watch just these 3 movies separately and just take them as these space fantasy movies with this crew going from adventure to adventure, and I think it would work with very minimal knowledge of the outside MCU because you get the little brief Thanos cameos and stuff, but that's just to make
they
those
even
connections.
explain in this one like why Gamora is the way she is.
But they almost throw it out there where Peter's like, "Yeah, my girlfriend died because of a magic cliff and the thing," and then there's another version. I can't really get into it right now, but whatever. Like it's a little complicated. She's not the same person. Like they're like, there's another story if you want to dig into that, but like we're just kind of gonna move on a little bit.
I like how they like explain why. Like I don't know why she just is.
It's magic. I don't know. I can't explain it. So I like the tones of it. The dark stuff and the emotional stuff really worked for me. Again, we'll get into it in a minute, like more specifically, but that stuff really, really worked. Yeah, a lot of the character beats did. I like where they ended a lot of this, like as far as if you wanted to keep the series going or keep some spinoffs or whatever going, there's opportunities for that. But if it ended right here, I'd be okay with it. It's a nice little trilogy of movies. You could argue it might be the best trilogy within the MCU. I think you could have that discussion. There's a battleground discussion to be had, Jacob. Like the Captain America trilogy versus the Guardians trilogy, or the Thor, movies versus the Guardians movies, or whatever. Like there's a discussion to be had there.
Oh yeah, that's just because just off the top of my head, I'm going Captain America, Spider-Man, then Guardians, just for me personally.
Sure.
But I think there's an argument to be had, definitely, because even the ones I consider like the weakest of each trilogy are still really good movies.
Sure.
And so that's definitely a discussion to be had. If we were talking just if we were going to base it off the music, it's Guardians, hands
the original
down.
one. Yeah, I think that one of the it's not a fault. I think there's good music within the movie, but I think it's kind of the least memorable soundtrack of the 3. Because they didn't use a lot of recognizable songs. Even I, who've listened to a lot of older music because of my dad, introduced me to a lot of music where almost every song in the original Guardians and even Guardians 2 to a degree I recognized like pretty quickly. I didn't recognize a lot of the music in this one, so maybe I think some of it works in the context of the movie, but I think it's the weakest soundtrack of the 3. To where the other 2. you get out of the movie and you immediately want to jump on Spotify or whatever and like start listening to the soundtracks. You know what I mean? And you're cool with that. This one, I didn't have that inclination. You know.
Anytime you use Beastie Boys, though,
No,
I'm
I'll
on
say
board.
that was great, and that was the most memorable song out of it was the No Sleep for Brooklyn sequence, and we'll talk about that sequence very soon. But I mean, let's get into it. Let's get into
Yeah.
spoilers.
So yes, if you're
I
watching now and
I
you haven't seen
definitely
it,
I definitely recommend it. You know what I mean? If I
yes,
had to do out of a
and
10,
he's
it's
recommending it, it's
thumbs
good.
up. If I'm recommending it, and I haven't recommended a lot of the MCU lately, and give it like a good, I'm kind of bordering between like a 7.5 and an 8 out of 10. Like it's pretty good for me. You know what I mean? Like that's a pretty good score for an MCU movie right now. I'll say that because I'm still. Oh my god! After this, we got the Marvels. Like, fuck off. Anyway, it's like it's just gonna go right back to being like, oh my god, I don't care.
Who knows where we're going after that with this writer's strike, though?
Yikes! Yeah. So, but yeah, spoiler alert ahead. Let's go ahead and get into it for anybody who hasn't seen it. Come back later if you have, and join us. But yeah, let's get into some. I mean, we have to start with Rocket because I mean it's his movie. So let's get into it's basically the Rocket backstory. It's Rocket's character that, and again, character stuff that we've teased in the other films. You have that one sequence in the original where we finally see him without his like outfit on, and he's got like the attachments in his back, and it's really heartbreaking. You're just like, oh my god, somebody messed with this guy like really bad. Somebody's done something to this cat, and they've like alluded to it. And he's not a raccoon, but he is a raccoon. But he's not a raccoon. But yeah, the flashback sequences were definitely my favorite sequences because I love animals, dude. I'm a proponent of humane societies. I got my dog from a humane society. I donate to humane societies to this day. I've done volunteer stuff with humane societies. Like I love, so anybody that, and yes, it's instant kind of cheap heat. I get it, to get you to hate a villain very quickly. But yeah, anybody time you're showing any kind of animal abuse, or animal testing, yeah, it's gonna make me uncomfortable, but in that way to where it really got me emotionally invested, man. Like when they're first doing a lot of the experiments on Rocket and they throw him into
As
the
a
cage
baby.
as a baby, and they throw him into the cage, and you see the other animals that are kind of in the cages with him that eventually become his like little buddies. And the first words when he starts to develop words and he's shaking and he's literally just like shaking and jitter, and curled up in a fetal position, and his first word is hurts. Oh my god, I almost cried in the theater right there. Oh my god. Like I hated that.
Instant emotion, like
Oh
10
my
minutes in the
god, I was like,
movie.
oh my god, don't make me cry like immediately.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, I hate that shit because I don't like dogs in peril in movies. I don't like, like I say, animals in peril or being abused or whatever. And I was just like, oh boy, oh god, oh Jesus, like don't do this. Like, and yeah, so it immediately got me invested. Yeah, seeing all the other animals and his buddies and what they've clearly had horrible things done to them, with the attachments that they have, and you can tell they've just been messed with a lot. And yeah, that progression of that stuff, man, it's brutal, bro. Jacob, man, it's brutal,
Yeah,
man.
I couldn't. I'm so glad they broke it up, and it
Yes,
just
I
wasn't.
couldn't take an
If
extended
it
season
was,
for that. No, oh my god.
if it was one section of the movie, like,
Uh-huh.
oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I would be uncomfortable, and I wouldn't. No, I'd like.
Yeah.
Let's get back to some fun stuff. I
Sure.
don't feel happy anymore.
Right. I don't like what I'm feeling right now. I don't like this. Yeah.
Which is why I appreciated the comedy coming in where it did and when it did.
Right. Yes.
But yeah, no, that stuff was so heartbreaking. Even from the jump when Adam Warlock is introduced, because he's the one, because the High Evolutionary, the villain, wants Rocket back because he's the one that created him and he needs him back. But he's got his family now, and you can tell just like the progression of these characters. Like they're a family. Like they are these misfits from all walks of life, and they've come together and not only started a family, but like they're starting an entire like town,
community, like a community. Yeah, a community on nowhere where it feels like they've not only settled into like let's just live here and be a family and maybe go off on an adventure every now and then or whatever, here and there, but it feels like they've made this their home. And yeah, the people of the community kind of know them, probably throughout their adventures. Some of the people maybe they've helped over the years and things. And yeah, they've got this thing. What's the guy's name? The guy that Sean Gunn plays, the Ravager dude.
Raglan.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, yeah, Sean Gunn's thing. The guy who kind of took over Yondu's, arrow and all that. But yeah, like he settled in with them. He's become kind of a member of the family, and Nebula has feel like she's finally found kind of a family, like in a new home, with them, and they've accepted her as this because she's an outcast and a misfit just like them. You know what I mean? Like she fits right in. This sort of person who was also went through an unspeakable, abuse.
Who has always wanted just to feel accepted.
Just feel accepted by somebody. Yeah. And they accept her for who she is. And yeah, Quill is kind of going through like a depression because of obviously the death of his Gamora, we'll say, and the fact that new Gamora is just not the same person, and she has no connection. There's no chemistry there, and he's bummed out about that. He's drinking, he's drunk all the time, he's sleeping all the, he's not doing good. And yeah, Drax and Mantis still have kind of their awkward back and forth with both of them being so blunt and to the point, as they tend to be, but it's a fun dynamic. I still kind of like their back and forth.
Yeah. Which chemistry. I liked a lot more in this movie than I did. Because it wasn't as mean.
Yeah.
It wasn't
mean. Yeah, no. And because, they still make fun of Drax, but they talk about how, but no, that's what we like about you is that you're kind of a doofus, but like you got a heart of gold. You know what I mean? And
which we see later on, which we'll get to when we when we go through the movie. But
yeah, Adam Warlock comes in. Rocky gets injured, and the fact they can't use like the med packs on him because he's got all the implants and the mechanical stuff, like it just doesn't work. And yeah, they've got to go on this sort of rescue mission, so to speak, to kind of help him out. Yeah, and they all come together and they unite around that. And because he's one of their guys. He's one of your family. You do the same if it was one of your family members. And yeah, the High Evolutionary is, it's interesting though. Like, he's a despicable dude, but I find what he's doing interesting. Like, at least with the plot, I think he's a fascinating villain because he's trying to do this, create like a perfect society with perfect creatures within the society. But then you see this alternate Earth later where it looks like our Earth just with all these wacky creatures, but they've got the same problems that we have of like drugs and homelessness and, people being depressed and on the streets. And it's like natural evolution just dictates that things like that are going to happen. You can't have a perfect society. Something is going to go wrong, no matter how hard you try, it's not really attainable.
Yeah. And what does he do when it's not working? Well,
start over.
Roll it up and start over. Like,
right.
And it's like, oh my goodness, I hate this
ruthless
guy.
Yeah, this
not only is he torturing animals, but he's just killing thousands of people without even batting an eye. Like,
and he's creating all these people who don't know where they came from or why they look the way they do. And it's like, okay, well, I'm done with you now. I'm just going to chuck you on this thing and good luck. Like basically it's what the vibe I get is they're just thrown onto this world. And it's like, they're just outcasted on this thing and they just don't know who they are or why they are. And and Rocket is like, he's one of the ones that kind of came out successfully. And his little buddies. And his little buddies, that despite what they've all been through, they bond, together in these cages, and they become, they watch out for each other. And I mean, we might as well get into it, but the other flashback in the middle where we have this realization like, oh my God, something's going to happen here. And he starts to rescue them and it doesn't work out well. and it doesn't. And he freaks out and has this breakdown and it's heartbreaking, man. Like it'll make you cry, man. It's really rough.
Yeah, Bradley Cooper did an amazing voice performance, which is why I've said this on our animated shows before too, like our tier rankers. Like voice performance should be a category that gets recognized at these big award shows,
right?
Because like it's just a voice performance, but sometimes that's a lot harder.
Voice acting is hard because you have to convey, especially on cartoons, animated series and things like that, animated movies. A lot of times they record this before they animate it. So you don't have, if you see a lot of behind the scenes, a lot of these actors are doing physical performances in the booths and things because you have to convey certain emotions and stuff without being seen on screen. You have to just do it with your inflections, with your tone, with the way you say words. Like it's very difficult,
Yeah.
because a lot of people are physical actors that convey things, with their face, with their body movements, and you don't really necessarily have that with a voice acting performance. So sometimes it's even more difficult to have a great one where you feel what the character is feeling just through a voice. Yeah.
Yeah, he conveyed so much emotion, like through these flashbacks, and even like you said, spoilers.
Yeah.
Um, Later on, when he's better,
Yes.
and well, he's we think he's about to die,
Right. Yeah. And
and
he has
oh
that
my
kind of.
goodness, I was like
They're gonna
so
do it.
happy. I was like, because I thought for sure
Yeah.
that he was not gonna make it. And I was
Uh,
just like, I was just sitting there. I was like this, and then I just started sitting back as he's getting closer to Lila. I'm just like,
right.
oh man, oh man.
Yeah.
And then she
And
says,
it's
but not yet.
but not yet.
And
Yeah.
I was like, yes. Thankfully, I was sitting alone, and it was but
It's because it's almost like the Deadpool scene too with him and Vanessa. If you remember that one where Vanessa's like, "Yeah, I'll be here waiting for you, but not yet." You know what I mean? Like you still got some more things to do. Yeah, and it's the same thing. Like we'll be here waiting for you, buddy. When your time is right. But yeah, and he sees his people in the distance, and he wants to go, see them and hug them and all that. Yeah, it's heartbreaking, man. Because yeah, we've never seen these characters before, but they establish a connection where we feel like we've known them as long as Rocket has known them. It's really well done.
yeah, it's the connection and the backstory I wanted in Event Horizon.
Okay, I
Um,
get that.
something like that. Not to this extent,
No, I
but
understand. Yeah,
just
yeah,
just knowing more. And like, yeah, and maybe it helps that they're animals and that kind of
yeah. It's
you
more of
feel
an
a little
instant
more
thing.
emotion because of that fact. But yeah, like it was only through flashbacks, but yeah, we felt like we knew these characters and had time with them. And so yeah, that was really emotional when not only Rocket isn't going with them, but seeing them, yeah, knowing that they didn't make it,
Hmm.
like it's heartbreaking stuff. And yeah, this is definitely Rocket's movie.
Hmm.
And even though we only see him most of the time through flashbacks,
Yeah.
like it's Rocket's movie.
Hmm.
And yeah, um, the other Guardians, I thought like I really enjoyed what James Gunn did with them. I think Peter Quill, obviously, he still has his Quillisms,
Hmm.
but he's obviously going through some heartbreak and just this sadness, which and rightfully so. Like this girl that someone that you've been spending all this time with, and that you've
Hmm.
made this connection with, and you're in love with, dies because
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know at the hands of Thanos. Like, yeah, that's gonna get to you.
Yes.
And like, yeah, like this movie just starts off like on this just like this emotional level with Peter, and then with Rocket. And yeah, it doesn't let up, even though there is comedy
Hmm.
mixed in. Like, it's a very emotionally heavy movie.
Right.
And like it's probably the most emotional I felt in an MCU movie. And that's me including No Way Home. Even like the end of Infinity War
End
and,
game and
and
all that
Endgame,
sort of stuff.
because it's
Yeah. Yeah.
like that stuff's in like sections. This was like throughout.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so like, yeah, it's emotionally heavy, and I don't usually like to rewatch movies like that.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like, I want to rewatch this just because of
Right.
like
Yeah.
how good I thought it was. Um, but yeah, like that's the emotional side. I thought the comedy really worked, like when it was interjected, like the stuff with the what like when they were all going to wherever they had to go to get
The weird like
or
membrane
yeah,
corporation. Yeah, I
yeah,
just wanted to talk about that real quick because yeah, we can get another sequence because I just like the weird like design of it. Like I
mhm,
get off on really I like when sci-fi movies and stuff really dig into like really strange technology. Like one of the things I like about like the Krypton sequence in the original Man of Steel when it's like this weird mechanical, but like when these keys are forming out of this little like
yeah,
rippling
yeah,
mechanicals, and like it's got this weird strange technology to where they're advanced, but it like looks kind of magical, in the way it works. And how this one, it's like people are putting their hands in these goo things to like manipulate, instead of like a keyboard, it's like they put their hands in these like slime things, but like move things around. And the door panels are like kind of, everything's just really squishy and like gooey and slimy, but it's advanced technology, so like it's very weird. I like just the whole sequence, just exploring like how that world worked, like how that technology worked. I just thought it was interesting, because it was like, ew, but like, okay, that's kind of funny, but
Yeah.
interesting. Why are their suits look like blown up Michelin men people, they're bouncing all over the place. Like, that's weird. And yeah, I find that stuff, I just found it from a set design thing kind of interesting, Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I think this is where Nathan Fillion was
Yeah, he was like a
introduced.
security guy. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, the stuff before they go in about like the what? No, yellow is blue and blue or whatever colors. Like,
Blue means red means yellow means green, and then you press
like
the yellow for the green for the thing. What? Oh, you should have explained
why
that
would I
before.
know that?
Yeah.
Um,
And the Drax is just like, we all knew that. Like just his very flat thing. So just like, I thought that was obvious. Like
his
it's,
delivery is
yeah.
so good.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's a
Um,
good thing I had my incredible strength to break through that door. Otherwise, we'd be dead right now. Like Batista. Yeah, he's got this character down pat. Like
yeah.
that's for damn sure. And I know he said this is the last time he's going to play him because he's shown his range. I want to see him do other movies
Oh
because
yeah.
he's shown what a really good ranged actor he is.
Yeah. He's got two really good movies this year
Yeah.
already.
So yeah, he definitely nails it as he always does. Yeah, Mantis, like I've come to really like, just as the way she kind of speaks and kind of delivers all her stuff and her kind of bluntness as well. And yeah, Nebula is just always kind of frustrated with everybody, thinking that she's kind of the smartest person in the room, all the time. And Quill just being lackadaisical. Yeah, his interactions with Gamora, because yeah, it's not the same as the first two with them kind of courting each other, but his things where he'll do something and be like, "See, I am really funny. I'm funny, right? Like I'm pretty charming," like that kind of stuff,
Yes.
and him getting frustrated with how much Gamora, how violent Gamora is, like in the movie,
Yes,
and quick
because
to
Gamora, if we didn't mention, is the leader of the Ravagers now.
the Ravagers, yeah.
So,
With another appearance from Sylvester Stallone, which I thought was fun. I didn't know if he was
yeah.
just going to be a one-off from Guardians 2, but yeah, they brought him back for a quick little scene, which was fun. He's out there
Yeah.
because they talked about doing a spin-off with him, but like I don't know if I need that. Like, I'm fine with
Right.
if they don't do that, but I like enough that we get this alternate Ravager group. Like, I think that'd be fun. But yeah,
Yeah, I would love to see a spin off of that. That'd be cool. Maybe with the Gamora leading.
you
I would
could, because
mind
yeah, you
that.
could have
Yeah.
Gamora and Stallone kind of leading that group, and we saw kind of they have a couple of quirky characters in there. Like they've got like a guy flying around in like a bottle or something, and then another kind of squid creature or something that was like floating around that movie. Yeah, like they have their own little crew of quirky creatures and people. Yeah, that look weird. But yeah, like you see that. We'll get to the end, the mid credit scene about sort of what could be the new Guardians. In a movie,
Yeah.
what could be like if they continued sort of a spin-off of like a new Guardians sort of movie. But yeah, like the stuff on the like the alternate Earth was interesting, but I don't know if they dug into it as much as I think I would have liked, because we just get brief glimpses of
Hmm.
how it's like suburbia, but with like weird alien creatures, like
Right.
all yeah, but they still have like TVs and couches. I did like the bit with Drax kept trying to lay down on the couch. It's like, what else is it for? If not for me to get comfortable, like whatever. Yeah, I thought that was fun.
I want to see him lead a comedy. Like I think he can do it.
Just
Like
actual Batista or the
yeah.
character?
No,
Or
Batista, because like he did Stuber, but like I don't know if he was the necessarily the lead. Like Nail, not
yeah,
Gianni was, but I think he could absolutely lead a
a
comedy.
silly, like over the top, goofy comedy. No, I absolutely believe with his range that he could do it.
He's
Like he's got
he's
the
the
chops.
best wrestler turned actor.
You could definitely make that argument. I think he's for sure in that conversation, especially after the last few years where we've really seen him branch out. Because yeah, even when he started getting, he had Guardians, but then there was a couple movies where he just kind of played a muscle dude, like an action guy. But we've seen what he can do, obviously, with this and like Knock at the Cabin and Glass Onion, especially.
Yeah.
Like Glass Onion was great, and
Yeah, his scene in Blade Runner 2049 is probably
really
my favorite scene in that movie.
yeah. I mean, he did like My Spy, but it's like, does anybody care? Like, it's just the typical like, oh, it's a kid with the dad, like, like, or not the dad, but like, it's a guy with a kid sidekick. Like, we've seen that a million times. But yeah, I'd like to see him do like just maybe like an R-rated comedy, just like kind of really branch out and really explore his chops. Yeah, I can see that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think he's absolutely hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
His delivery in this movie is just like sort of that when he has that deadpan delivery, it's amazing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But even like his like when he's when Nebula and finally sees like his worth and what he actually can contribute to the group, and then later on to the community when they save all those people on the ship.
Yeah. How he's able to connect with the kids and stuff.
Yeah. Like, oh my god, that was so awesome.
You forget, going back to the original movie, that he was a dad.
Yeah, he was a dad and a husband. Yeah,
he lost his wife and kid to Thanos, or to a Thanos attack or whatever. You know what I mean? Because that was his motivation for going after Thanos. But you forget he was a dad. So like, and we never really saw his interactions with his family that much. We just get kind of allusions to it. But yeah, that he has those fatherly instincts, and he's got this silly side where he could make kids laugh and be entertaining, and he connects with them doing the little dancing that he does, and the goofy robot stuff, or whatever, just playing around with it. And then and being like, yeah, I speak their language, you just never bothered asking. Why did you ask? Yeah, you just assumed I didn't. That's like the Rush Hour thing, where it's just like I never said I didn't speak English, you just assumed I didn't speak English. Yeah.
Yeah, and when Mantis wants to leave, Drax wants to go with her, but who is it that says I need you here? It's Nebula, who's like always on him and at him, and it's like it was just so cool to see, like, what she's recognizing what he can contribute to the community, and it was really cool. I think where everyone ended,
we could talk about that really kind of cool. Where everybody branches out and goes to,
because Rocket, nobody died in the movie, and I
thought
I was so glad to be wrong.
I thought they would pull the trigger on either Rocket or Quill, like one of the two. You know what I mean? Like I thought if it was going to be anybody, it was going to be.
And they teased it at moments.
They even teased Quill, like biting it at the end. With the thing. Yeah.
I thought Rocket or Drax. I didn't think Quill. So when Quill's out there and he's like frozen, and then Adam Warlock, who I still don't know why he was in the movie other than to injure Rocket at the beginning.
Well, we watched that pitch meeting the other night, and they totally nailed it, where it's like, oh yeah, we did kind of tease Adam Warlock. We probably should do Adam Warlock, because people have been asking for Adam Warlock. But at the same time, it's like, he didn't need to be in the movie. You could have had somebody else injure Rocket, or have him get injured some other way or whatever, like, and then Quill or somebody else could have rescued Quill, at the end, like it didn't have to be like Warlock. I mean, it's fine that they gave him something to do. I mean, I didn't hate the Warlock character, because I like Will Poulter. I like Will Poulter a lot. I was going to say the same thing. I like Will Poulter as an actor, so I just like seeing him on screen. He's fun to watch. And when you put it in the context of how the things they drop about him, that they pulled him out of his cocoon early, so he's still kind of like a child. He's like an overpowered child, and his mentality is that of like a kid, because he's got this thing with him and his mother, of like, he's being kind of pushed around or whatever, and how he gets a little kind of heroic, chance at the end because he's a kid, he's a kid who was manipulated into being kind of villainous, and he's got that childlike mentality, but he's got, superpowers, but he's got his ability. He doesn't know how strong he is and what to do with it. We see just his kind of kid mentality, especially like in that mid-credit scene where they put on the music and he's just kind of bouncing like a little kid, like really stiff, like got this kind of smile on his face, and he feels like he belongs. So I mean, I didn't hate his character overall. It was just it felt forced, but and even then, even the stuff with the kids to a degree was a little forced. Like it was almost like you either do the animals or the kids, maybe not both, but like they still did both, and I was fine with it. But yeah, it felt like it was they were trying to cram a lot in that last 30 minutes. You know, it's like we gotta wrap everything up in this final 30 minutes to get it done.
Yeah. And part of that final 30 minutes was that awesome action sequence with
Oh, the hallway
with
fight.
Beastie
Yeah,
Boys
we
and
talk about with the no sleep until in
yeah, with
Brooklyn.
Beastie Boys
Yeah,
in the background. Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
really good.
Good team ups, good, yeah, um Gamora was still there, like they kind of she kind of had to,
Yeah.
they wanted to save their friend, they weren't dropping her off
Mhm.
because Rocket's a little bit more important.
Sure.
So yeah, but no, like I liked seeing her grow as like maybe these are good people, like maybe I can
Yeah.
so seeing them all together again, um
Hmm.
as like a full team,
Hmm.
fighting all these,
Kicking ass, yeah, in the hallway, yeah,
it
fighting all
was
those guys. It was
so
good. Yeah, it was a
cool.
good scene, really good scene. Yeah, really well shot. Yeah, the way everybody kind of somebody hits over here, and then another person picks it up over here, and then we jumped over here with somebody shooting whatever, and yeah, it was just good hallway fights. It was like the Daredevil fight, on the Daredevil series. There's been I won't compare it to like the Raid hallway fight with the
Yeah.
machetes because that's still one of my favorites, but it's not on that level, but it was good, and yeah, everybody had a purpose and contributed. Mantis, they have those three big like creatures, that she rides off with it at the end of the movie. It's like her pets,
Yeah.
because she's got. But they use her ability to tap into somebody's mind, like she, to calm them down and stuff. Like, yeah,
Or to make
everybody
them
has.
fall in love with Drax.
Yeah, right. But yeah, everybody has their place on the team, and it works. Especially when
Yeah.
it all comes together. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought, yeah, where everyone goes, Gamora goes back with the Ravagers.
Mhm.
Mantis goes off to, I guess, like discover herself or whatever.
Yeah, well, they alluded that she's never really led like her own adventure or her
Yeah.
own,
If she
found
was
her
with
purpose
Ego,
because
and
she
then
was Ego's little assistant person, and then she's been kind of tagging along with the Guardians, but like not, she's not a leader, she's never really discovered who she is
right.
or yeah, how, her to live her own life. She's always kind of been with other people. So I get that. It makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And then yeah, Nebula and Drax stay on nowhere, kind of
To
leading
help the
that.
kids out. Yeah,
Um,
Drax can use that fatherly connection to kind of help the kids out and teach them
Starts
and
dancing with
make
them at
them.
the end. It's
Yeah, that's
really cool.
fun. Yeah, Rocket ends up. Yeah, well, Quill. We should say it's a big Quill goes back home. He
Yeah.
goes back to Earth for the first time, and in a long time, and connects with I guess the one family member he still has, which is his grandfather. Which is cool. Yeah, and shows up where he is. Just going back home to Earth. Which he hasn't been to since a kid. So that was interesting. Yeah, I like when it was like, yeah, I've been in a car. It doesn't mean I don't necessarily know how to drive it. Like I was 8 years old at the time. I was riding in the passenger seat. I didn't drive a car. Like
Yeah.
they do the thing everybody does when they start driving, the start stop thing. I'm like, okay, trying to figure it out.
And we should mention, and this isn't a spoiler because it was talked about a lot, but we finally have the first F bomb in the MCU.
Yeah,
This guy
that was
says, "Open the door."
effing door, yeah, and because we've teased some, there was the one post credit thing in Infinity War where Sam Jackson almost drops the mother,
Yeah.
F line. So yeah, we almost get that, but yeah, he finally actually drops one in the MCU. That was
If you would
interesting.
have told me it would be Chris Pratt and not Samuel L. Jackson, I wouldn't
Right.
have believed you. Or
Yeah,
Ryan Reynolds in the upcoming Deadpool movie.
sure. Which I'm sure he will in that one. Yes.
I
But
wouldn't I wouldn't have been surprised if they did in this one, that Deadpool just opens with something happened to him and he just goes.
fuck. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, but yeah, we get Rocket leading kind of this new crew of Guardians where they kind of adopt Adam Warlock into their group, he because to
Mhm.
be, kind of a muscle, which he could definitely be muscle. He's still with Groot, so him and Groot are still boys, they're still partners. I mean, I could watch a whole movie of Rocket and Groot just having, space adventures, sort of Han Solo and Chewie style, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Doing their thing. But we get, what's his name? The Sean Gunn character.
Kraglin.
Yeah, Kraglin, kind of starting to master his Yandu abilities with the
Hmm.
arrow. And then who was the
Who
other?
makes an appearance, by the way? So like a five
Yeah, in
seconds
the
we
distance.
see
Yeah, it's a quick
Yondu.
cameo. Yeah, he kind of sees him, gets a little inspiration from him. Yeah, in the
Now I'm
background.
wondering if that was like they used old footage, or if Michael Rooker actually came back and got in full
He
makeup.
might have
And
come back and gotten into the makeup for the one scene. You never know, for a one day thing. Why, I could see him doing it. He likes that character. So, and then there was another
just
like
some
creature with them.
one of the
Somebody.
one of the little girls.
Yeah, there was some one or two other people I didn't recognize that they had picked up along the way,
Yeah,
but yeah, they teased like this other crew that, and I thought it was a great full circle thing with them. Like, hey, how about some music? And they kick on the Redbone, like, "Come and Get Your Love." Like, I thought, that
yeah.
was a great throwback to the opening scene of the first one, bringing it full circle, and everybody kind of, because yeah, even when they hit it in the theater, like in the theater when they hit it that during that
Oh,
scene, like
Cosmo was the other one.
the Cosmo
The
dog,
dog.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
forgot
the
about that dog.
it says Phyla, one of the rescued children, and Adam's pet Blurp. Yeah,
Blurb. That's who I
that's the
didn't
one.
recognize.
Yeah,
Was the blurb
it was
thing
the
or
Blurp.
whatever.
Yeah, it was the one that
Okay.
from the guy they killed earlier in the movie.
Okay. Okay. All right.
And
So
show him we mean business.
yeah.
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 That was a little much.
Yeah. But yeah, I the whole theater, I'll say when they did that scene and they kick on the "Come and Get Your Love," like I looked around and everybody in the theater was like, like yeah, like because that song is definitely synonymous with that movie now. Like you can't get away
Yeah.
from it. Like everybody knows that song now because of that movie, and it was a great way to kind of bring it back full circle with the soundtrack. Because yeah, that song kicks ass. Anyways, that song's great. But yeah, that was a nice thing, and yeah, we get kind of another post button about Star Lord, and with the title credit that Star Lord will return. Which doesn't mean he'll actually return. Is it like I told you, maybe a throwback to the James Bond will return type credits that we would get a
Right.
lot of the times? Is it just a tease? Is it an opening for him to have some kind of spin-off adventure? I don't know. So yeah, we'll see. Or now
It's
that
kind of
he's
curious.
now that he's back on Earth, can he join back up with the Avengers? For a future Avengers movie. It means he's on Earth, right? So
Yeah.
you could see him just continuing his character in the Avengers and becoming a full-fledged Avenger. Like you can fully see that. So
Do you think because he wasn't on Earth during Spider-Man, so he still knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man,
does he?
even though nobody else does?
Well,
Because it was
maybe that could factor into it. Yeah, I was trying to remember the last time. So yeah, because Infinity War, he was off with Stark and them in space on the moon. Yeah, he comes back in Endgame. He's in the Endgame battle, right? So
yeah, because
yeah.
Star Lord and yeah, because the Guardians meet up with
Mhm.
in Infinity War, they meet up with Iron Man, Spider-Man, and
Right, but they're off on that moon, and then when they come back through the portal, right? And they're fighting with Captain America on Earth, right?
yeah.
So
So I'm wondering, are the Guardians gone by because the Guardians are gone by the time Doctor Strange casts the spell? Does it only affect people on Earth?
right, yeah. Does it only affect people on Earth, or does it affect anybody who ever knew Peter Parker?
That's what I'm
Like,
curious about now. Like,
so yeah, he could tie into that somehow. Yeah, he could become a full-fledged Avenger now that he's back on Earth and actually hook up with them and have some cool interactions. Because yeah, he's had interactions with Stark, but yeah, like not many people and Spider-Man, but not many people outside of that. So yeah, him, us, and Thor obviously, but seeing him interact with some of the other Avengers, Ant-Man or Falcon or who's going to be Cap or whatever, obviously now, and Doctor Strange, like that could be interesting, like you
yeah,
throw him in the mix back because that's what that could mean. He could just come back as one of the Avengers, and Pratt could continue just him being a solo character, for sure.
yeah. So I'm curious and excited to see what that means, or if it's just a that's
If it's just an
just
open-ended thing,
what it is.
it could
Yeah,
be. Yeah,
um,
it'd be interesting to see what they do with the Guardians now that James Gunn is gone too. So, like, if somebody picks up the
yeah.
mantle, like, who would pick it up if they do like a new Guardians thing with that new crew? Like,
I
yeah,
can't
without James
imagine
Gunn
who
at
would
the
do it.
helm, I don't know. Yeah, it would have to be somebody that has kind of a similar sensibility. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see where
Yeah,
it goes if they pick it up.
and the first name that comes to mind, comedy wise, is Taika Waititi. But I've
Oh
seen
no,
him
please God no.
before, and I don't want that.
God
What
no.
do you do
No,
with
no,
Love and Thunder? Like I don't want that.
no.
Because James Gunn also wrote the movies.
The closest
So
I could see is Lord and Miller.
yeah, it,
Is the Lord and Miller guys, who did the Lego movie and
mhm.
like and and 21 Jump Street and that sort of thing. I think because they can do action, but I think they have good comic sensibilities. But then again, they
Yeah.
also had a falling out with Disney over the Solo movie. So like I don't see
Mhm.
them collaborating with Disney again anytime soon. So
Right.
yeah, they have a similar sensibility. So yeah, unless you got like an up and coming sort of comedic person or action person who has good comedy within their action, yeah, I don't know. So that'd be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah.
We could see definitely things get announced in the next couple of years depending on their reaction to everything. So we'll see.
Right. So
Yeah,
yeah, we'll see where it goes. But yeah, I love this movie. I haven't seen a lot from the year, but it's currently my number one. I
yeah,
loved it. Um, so we'll see where it ends up. But yeah, I mean we're doing a best of 2023 so far. You know, come the beginning of July, I'm pretty
sure,
sure I will be talking about this movie again because
okay,
I loved it.
sure,
Um, so yeah, that was our Guardians discussion.
yeah, yeah.
So let us know your thoughts on the movie.
Hmm.
And let us know your thoughts on the other three that we talked about: Event Horizon, Galaxy Quest, and 2001: A
Hmm.
Space Odyssey. Um, I, I enjoyed all these movies. This was a fun discussion.
Yeah.
Um,
But another episode, Jacob, much like the one we did before that, where it was four positive movies, four good
yeah,
movies, which is always good because we try to be positive on the show for the most part. We'll see how it works out next week. I got one movie I'm curious to revisit, so it may or may not.
yeah. And in a
We'll
couple
see.
weeks, we'll be
Yeah, we'll,
doing
we'll talk
a
about. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about what we're gonna do in 2 weeks. So we got the Little Mermaid coming out right in 2 weeks as
right.
of right now. So it's a hot topic of remakes, especially these Disney remakes. So we're not going to be talking about like the Disney remakes in general, okay? But it's kind of the catalyst for the discussion we're going to have. But we're going to do what we've kind of been doing similar. We're going to talk about four remakes and four very different remakes. So we each pick two that we want to talk about, whether we're seeing them for the first time or it's just ones we want to revisit or what have you. So let's reveal which ones we're picking and we're going to talk about. So
Yeah. So I have chosen the remakes Evil Dead because I have not seen the remake
okay,
or the new one.
yeah.
So maybe I'll do a double feature, triple
It's
feature.
the
Watch
new
it.
one, Evil Dead Rises. Right now, it just dropped for like digital rental, but it's like $20 right now. So I don't know if you want
I'll
to
wait
shell
then.
out $20 for that. I mean, I would say just wait till it goes down to like $4 or $5. If you want to rent it, or it might pop up. I don't know what streaming service it would pop up, but I'm sure it would pop up somewhere eventually. But we'll get
Right.
around to that eventually. But yeah, so yeah, the 2013 Evil Dead, which a lot of people really
2013.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people really like with Fede Alvarez. Yeah,
Yeah, because I've seen the first. I've seen the Evil Dead, Evil
the
Dead Two,
OG.
and Army of
Okay.
Darkness. I've seen those, and yeah, I really enjoy those.
Okay.
And I hear this one's like a totally different tone. So
It's
I'm very
very
curious.
serious. It's very gnarly. It's very bloody. So yeah, if you're not
Okay.
you have an aversion to blood, it literally is raining blood near by the end of the movie. So I'll just say that it's very very gnarly. But I also that's one where I haven't revisited in a long time, probably since 2013. I saw it in the theater. I own the Blu-ray. I just haven't popped it on in a while. So I'm curious to go back and watch it too. So I'm gonna watch that with you as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of my choices, and then the other one, it's probably my favorite of the Disney remakes so far, The Jungle Book.
Okay.
I love the remake. I love the original, and this is
Mhm.
one of the rare cases where I think the remake surpasses. So I'm curious to where because I want to rewatch both of them and maybe even do like a double feature of it and see if that's still the case because yeah, I really love
Sure.
the
Yeah.
60s Jungle Book.
Well, maybe you could talk about, because you're talking about a Disney, sort of live action in quotes remake with a live action kid, but like animated characters. But yeah, maybe to see how it compares if I see this Little Mermaid movie before it comes out, or maybe you're able to as well. Like we can talk about, maybe a good example, and then we'll talk about whether Little Mermaid comes out good or not. I don't know. Like
Right.
I'm up in the air. I don't know what to think about it. I just know that it's 2 hours and 15 minutes, which it doesn't need to be. That's the only opinion I have on it right now. But yeah, we'll talk about when people weren't sick of them yet, I guess. This Jungle Book.
Because I think that was like the second or third one. Because I know Cinderella.
It's like the second one right after Cinderella,
and
and yeah, I know Beauty and the Beast was right after that, so they started cranking them out eventually. But yeah, I think people were still kind of open to the idea at the time.
Yeah.
And Jungle Book, to be fair, is one of the kind of lesser, I guess you'd say, beloved ones, because I think the 90s ones are kind of the standard, the ones everybody talks about. And then some of those older ones, I didn't necessarily mind it at the time because, yeah, that older one does have a very dated animation style, and things like that. So, yeah, and you don't dig into a lot. It's like a 65-minute movie. There's not a lot to dig into. So, yeah, we'll talk about that. I picked another Disney movie, but one I've never actually sat down and watched. And it's oddly enough celebrating a 20th anniversary, which I didn't realize till I picked it, 2003. Freaky Friday and also because it ties in. We've seen these articles that have come out literally this week of like they're considering a sequel to this movie with Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan, which is a little strange. Maybe because of the Jamie Lee Curtis sort of resurgence with Everything Everywhere All at Once and the Halloween movies. Maybe now that she's kind of back in the conversation. And if Lindsay Lohan came back for it, it'd be interesting because we haven't seen her in a minute. So yeah, I've never
had that Christmas movie on Netflix, but I don't think she's done anything else other than that.
Yeah, so I've never sat down and watched this movie. I know it's kind of considered better than the original and a good remake, so I want to watch it, and I've heard it's good, so I want to check it out.
Yeah, I've never seen the original, so I'm gonna watch that and then rewatch. Yeah, just kind of compare the two.
And then a movie that I don't know about because it's been literally 25 years since I've seen this, and I'm curious because I know it's not very well loved, and it's a movie that's 25 years old. I want to rewatch the Psycho remake from Gus Van Sant and maybe talk about if it's better than we remember. I'll talk about that, but if it's like, again, if the reputation is true that even though it's shot for shot, it just doesn't work, we can talk about and discuss it, why it doesn't work, as a remake, on that. So I'm going to dig into some horror as well and talk, and I want to revisit, this will give me a reason to revisit that Psycho remake. So I want to dig into it and watch it and talk about it. So,
and I'd never seen the Psycho remake, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, so we'll talk remakes, what makes a good remake, what makes a bad remake, what the keys to those things are, and how to do it good, because we've definitely got some ones that are regarded as good ones, so we can talk about why they work, and one that's regarded as a not so good one and maybe what it could have done better or what it could have done differently. So we'll talk about that. I think it should be a good discussion. So yeah, we'll dig into that.
Yeah, so we'll get into that in a couple weeks. You got something kind of interesting going on in just about an hour, don't you?
In about an hour, yeah. And Wolfman, who was in our comments tonight, the Mega Movie Z, we're doing our. I never really look forward to them, but I also kind of look forward to them, like because it's always fun. But I always dread the things we have to watch and how much alcohol I have to consume. But we're going to be doing our monthly mistake drink along in just about an hour and we're going to put it on screen because I don't think we're going to get copyrighted for it because it officially doesn't exist. We're going to drink along and watch along with the Star Wars holiday special for the month, Star Wars month, essentially. It's May the 4th be with you. Tomorrow is George Lucas's birthday. So we're going to watch along to this thing. I've seen it before. It's been a while, but I've seen it before, and I remember it being absolutely god-awful. So if any of you guys are curious to see it, we're going to put it on screen because, this thing has never been commercially available. It aired once. Disney wants nothing to do with it, so I don't think we'll get any kind of copyrights. So we're going to go live. I'm going to put it on the damn screen because you can only put it up on YouTube anyways with the original commercials. So we're going to see some original 70s commercials with it. The Star Wars holiday special, the 70s thing. So we're going to put it on screen and watch it. It should be interesting, if anything else. Yeah. Nice. If you've never seen it, watch it with us and watch us get plastered. You don't have to drink with us. Just watch us get destroyed, but watch how bad this thing is. Yeah, we'll dig into it. So yeah.
Yeah, so that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
As always on the channel, we've got tournament fights, tier ranker, the
Yes.
lonely marks,
Hmm.
and sometimes some trivia. So
Yeah.
be sure to look out for that. Hit the bell if you want to be notified when we go live, because sometimes it's not always the same time.
Hmm.
Today we went an hour later than normal because we
Because
wanted to.
I needed some sleepy time just behind the scenes. I haven't I've only slept about 4 hours each of the last 2 nights because I did some battleground double duty hosting last night, just behind the scenes recording some episodes. So that drained me pretty good. So yeah, I needed some sleepy time, especially before I get drunk in a few minutes. Luckily, I'm off tomorrow, but yeah, it's but yeah, and yeah, tune into Lonely Marks if you like wrestling. We'll be talking some Russo this week, which I can't wait. That'll be
Yep.
fun, and a movie tie-in. We'll be talking
Yeah,
ready.
in the
We'll be
movie.
talking Ready to Rumble, so we're gonna be
Yeah,
talking about a movie as well. So a movie I know very well to tie it in. So
yeah.
that should be fun though,
It's gonna be a
regardless.
lot. Yeah, and then next Friday we'll be diving into the '90s
Oh
animated.
yeah, you're taking the lead on that one,
Uh,
and we decided to watch privately. We've been watching like the worst movie from each of these decades, so we've decided on one that we're going to dig into. I mean, we can spoil it right here for anybody watching. Yeah, we're going to watch, and I've never seen The Pebble and the Penguin, but
it's
it
been
has like
since the
it's
'90s since I've seen it. So
it's got like a 4 on IMDb. It's like a 10% Rotten Tomatoes or something. Yeah, it's supposed to be pretty bad. So and pretty cheap. So yeah, we'll say that. I think is that a Bluth joint? Like I know they were really floundering in the '90s. Like they
I
just
think we got
completely
that, a troll in
almost gave
Central
up.
Park.
Yeah, we were gonna watch Rover Dangerfield, but it's not really available streaming anywhere. So
Yeah,
maybe Jacob, maybe I'll rent it and still watch it. I might just because I'm curious, but you don't have to. Like I'll,
right.
you know,
It's been a while since I've seen that one too. It's
but
what I
I'll
like to.
balance it out with the good because I'm going to rewatch Prince of Egypt. I'm going to rewatch Goofy Movie, two of the ones that I know will come up on the show for sure.
Oh, for
That
sure.
I just haven't seen since they came out. You know what I mean? So I just want to revisit them. So yeah, I got some stuff to watch this week. It should be interesting. Yeah, a lot of different
Yes.
things.
So again, yeah, join us for those. Hit the
Mm-hmm.
bell for when we go live. Share this with your friends if you want. If
Yeah,
not, whatever.
that's
That's
fine.
cool too. Fine. But no, thank you guys for watching. If you watched live, if you're watching on the replay, also thank you for watching and let us know your
Thank you.
thoughts on these movies. Be sure to check out everything going on the channel this week. We will be back in 2 weeks talking
Yes.
remakes. But until then, just be good people. We will see you later.
Bye.